Hello, my name is Abigail Behrens, and I'm here to inform you about the recent Black Lives Matter protests. Alright, just a couple warnings. I do have some notes here that I'm going to be referencing. It's like a little script or something. There might be a little bit of background noise. I have siblings and I have dogs, so I'm sorry if you hear anything in the background. Also, I have double monitors, so I will be looking at the same monitor that you are going to be looking at later on, and I'm also going to be looking at myself in the other one just to make sure that everything's running smoothly and everything's going great. Alright, good, let's start. We're gonna start from the very beginning. Okay, so these protests started in 2012 after the killing of Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old black man. But it took off in 2014 after the police fatally shot Michael Brown. I personally thought you guys should know this because I think it's pretty important to know that these protests aren't just recent, that there's more to them, there's history, and there's a lot that goes into these. Okay, boom. The protests died down in 2016 because the focus was taken from the protests to the election. Alright, and they started again this year, 2020, after the death of George Floyd. Alright, we're gonna move on to another scene, I guess. That's what they're called and what I'm recording with. And we're gonna be looking at some graphs. So this is the first graph. This graph is showing you what race is and how many people are actually supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the second slide. Alright, this graph is, oh my god. Second graph is showing how many Americans have discussed the race in the past month. So this is basically saying if they've discussed, race, and showing how many Americans have been, and what they've been discussing about race. So if they've had conversations with family or friend, posted on social media, contributed to money, so they've given money to the organization, contacted a public official to express their opinion, or if they've attended a protest or a rally. Alright, now the next graph is showing how many Americans have been wrongly stopped by the police based off of their race and if they're a man or a woman. Now you can clearly see here and here that a lot of black people have been stopped by the police, and I was showing this graph to show you that there are many racial inequalities like this that are going on in the world right now and are going to probably unfortunately happen in the future because of people's mindsets and what the public shows these people are depicted as. Oh, okay. And this graph here is showing you what people support the movement based off their political belief. And I would just like to clear things up. You can still support this movement no matter your political belief, and you don't have to support this movement no matter your political belief. So you don't have to do anything about it, or you can do something about it. It doesn't really matter, and I just want to clear that up. And so this graph is showing you people who have worked directly with black people to stop their communities, based if you're Republican or Democratic. Bringing people of different racial backgrounds together to talk about race. Once again, Republican or Democratic. And then working to get more black people elected into the office, separated once again by Republican and Democratic, and organizing protests and rally. Once again, Republican and Democratic. Alright, the next graph is just like the first graph, except it's adding on to it with either you're Republican or Democratic. This is showing if you strongly support or if you somewhat support the the Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah. And then this one is basically showing how many people attended the protest or rally. So basically it's like the second graph where they were discussing race, but separated by race, age, and your political beliefs. Once again, you don't have to support, or you can support, doesn't matter, based off of your political beliefs or your age. It doesn't really matter. You can still support, or you don't have to support. And this graph is showing you basically the third one, unfairly stopped by police, but in like a different one. And it also shows you how they've been stopped by police, like, and what the police have said to them, and how they were reacting in these situations. Yeah. And so those are all of my these are all of my graphs. So we're going to be moving back to full screen of me. You're welcome. Alright. Lastly, I'm going to be discussing the actual protests. So 931 of the Black Lives Matter protests have no injury or harm come to any of the protesters or property around it. So this is saying that 93% have no injury. There's nothing violent going on with them. So if people are trying to tell you that the protesters are violent, just know that they're not violent, and a lot of the protests actually have no harm come to anyone. And yeah. Alright. So there were a total of 7,750 protests related to Black Lives Matter movement between May and August. This is pretty important because it shows you how many people are actually trying to get the Black Lives Matter movement like known to the public and stuff. It was proven that government officials were more likely to intervene in protests for the Black Lives Matter movement than they were to any other movement. Also, they were more likely to be violent against the protesters and use force such as tear gas, rubber bullets, oh my god, I lost it, pepper spray, or beating demonstrations with baton. So basically, the government officials were more violent than the actual protesters. There were 392 confirmed incidents where the government was seen using force against protesters. So that's actually a lot more than there should be, because we shouldn't be using force against people who are just using their First Amendment. But that's just my opinion. You shouldn't be, listening to me because I'm just a child if you want. But there were also over 100 cases of incidents where journalists were injured while covering the Black Lives Matter movements. So they were just there to write a story on it because that's their job, and they were still getting injured. I think that's kind of weird. Okay. Also, there were 8,500 reported arrests, or possibly more, during these protests of the Black Lives Matter movement. So basically, it's just saying that they were more likely to get arrested if you actually went. Alright, that's the end of my notes, so we're gonna wrap things up. So basically, in conclusion, the Black Lives Matter protests were non-violent protests that were just there to hopefully bring some light into people's eyes and see that the Black lives are suffering right now. There are other people suffering, but right now we're trying to focus on Black lives. So if you can do anything to help, or if you just don't support it, that's fine. Yeah. Alright, this is me signing off. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have an amazing day, year, and week.